Yes, ma'am.
Good time?
Yes, ma'am.
For September 28th, 2021 for Polk County. We're in the health building. It's 10 a.m. And at this time, we would like to ask Mr. Joshua Carney with First United Pentecostal Church to lead us in prayer.
We can close our eyes today and let's come before the presence of the Lord. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make her boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad. O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he heard me, and delivered me from all my fears. They looked unto him and were lightened, and their faces were not ashamed. Mighty God, as we come before you today, we ask you to lead our thoughts, to lead our minds, to lead all of our business, that it would glorify you today. In the name of Jesus, let each and every one of our minds be directed by the Holy Ghost. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, John.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
sir.
appreciate it. Madam Clerk?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have some public comments today, and so I arranged them in the order that they're on the agenda. And so Tyler Epstein, would you like to come up to the microphone? Madam Clerk, 3 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Patty, I want to start with, I don't really want to be here, don't have a choice. I've tried every other way to get around this. I want to open up J.A. Walding Road. It's the only ingress and egress from a piece of property that the trust owns. The road was put in by a jury of you, recorded officially government document, and it's still there. It's been fenced off, and everybody talks about it being fenced off. And according to the transportation code, fences don't matter as long as it's the only ingress and egress from a piece of property. I've also been told that the chapter 258, where the map was put in section G, I think it's .003G, it says if any road's omitted from the county map, it has no bearing whether or not it's a county road. Transportation code also says that every public road must be kept clear of obstruction by the commissioners. So I'm asking that the road be opened up and obstructions removed from that said road. And another thing that people keep talking about, the cost, keep looking and reading the law. I haven't seen anywhere in there where it says that cost is a reason that we can break the law.
Okay. All of you should have in front of you some letters that were written that were in opposition to opening the road. I guess, should I read them in for the record? I guess, let me read them for the record. So it says, Dear Judge Murphy and Polk County Commissioners, I'm writing to state my opposition to the proposal. Mr. Tyler Epstein contacted me in my capacity as a shareholder of Thomas Timber Investments, LLC, on Monday, September 20th, informed me that he would like to work with my family to potentially swap a piece of property he is planning to purchase from Rainier that sits between two parcels owned by Thomas Timber Investments, LLC. During the course of this conversation, he mentioned that he has put this proposed public road on this week's Commissioners Court agenda and expressed his utmost confidence that he will be granted an easement via this proposed county road to a separate property in question. To his credit, he also emailed me the documents he plans to present to the court. However, at no time during our conversation did he mention that this proposed public road would be coming across a portion of 91 acres that I own personally. To give him the benefit of the doubt, I assume it was due to lack of proper due diligence on his part in identifying all potentially impacted landowners. I actively manage this property for timber and hunting, and intend to continue that and make no other use of the property in the future. This proposed public road would impact the lease income that I currently receive from leasing the property for hunting, as well as reduce the value of timber potential now and into perpetuity. I have not given permission for Mr. Epstein's proposal public road to pass through my land. Anyway, that is the continuation, and you all can read it at your convenience, and that was submitted by Mr. Ryan Thomas. And then the other letter of opposition comes from Claire McAdams, and basically she says, I'm writing to state my total opposition to the proposal. Tyler Epstein did not bother to inform me of his plan to open a public road across the middle of my timber property, and I'm traveling and just heard about this issue, so I apologize for the lateness of this letter. As you know, forests are best protected from fire and other damage when the public is kept out of them. We actively manage our property for timber and intend to continue that and make no other use of the property in the future. Our property is in the Texas tree farm system. It is surrounded by timberlands. I have not and will never give permission for Mr. Epstein's proposed public road to pass through our land. Further, I strongly oppose any development of his land for any use of timber, and he may or may not in the future propose, as it would increase public access to my timberland to my and my family's detriment. That would raise our property values and threaten the future of timberland in the area as a whole. Anyways, that letter goes on further as well.
Can I rebut any of that?
No, sir, it's not a debate, it's just a public comment. Okay, then we have 4 people that would like to speak on items 16 and 17.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here along with Craig Jones, Bubba Rowe, and Reed Rowe. Might as well.
Close enough.
To discuss the items, part of item 16, which is considering modifying the Polk County subdivision regulations, namely the requirement for chip and seal on a private subdivision road. In addition to that, we would like to hear the outcome of item 17, which is the approval of Rolling Pine subdivision.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Who's next of the row boys? No one else?
You speak
Okay, information reports. Do we have the historical commission here? I see some of them back there. Okay, we have the presentation of the Texas Historical Commission Distinguished Service Award to Polk County Historical Commission. I do have to say that for as long as I've been here, we've been receiving this award, so obviously we have an outstanding historical commission, and I'm pretty sure that they received it many years before that as well. So we do want to say thank you to all of them and present this award. Do you all want to all come up here together and get this award? Or, yes, we definitely need a picture with everybody, so I guess we're just gonna snuggle up, take our chances. Come on. We don't have quite as much space up here as we're used to. Come on up here, Mr. Kugler. Mr. Kugler, since you're the youngest one in the whole bunch, then we're gonna let you receive this on behalf of the Historical Commission. Will that work? Does that work? Come on around. Everybody's gonna have to just spread out. Yes, ma'am. Come on, Catherine. How are you? Okay. Okay. So this is presented for the Distinguished Service Award to all of you on the Polk County Historical Commission, and we want to say thank you to everybody up here on behalf of the court and on behalf of the residents of Polk County. So there you go, Mr. Kugler.
We appreciate it very much.
You are very, very welcome. We appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He is definitely our leader behind the scene. He's the one that keeps us going, for sure.
Of course he does. He cracks a whip and he has all that
You
money.
hate to take a call for him. You hate to take a call for him because he's always got a project.
Thank you all,
Thank
thank
y'all.
you. Y'all didn't give me the one that squats down, did you?
No, I
We
think
won't know till you
I
sit
got it.
Oh, you'll know when I sit down, my feet go straight up.
Hey, we do that there in a photo op.
That was bad.
Okay, at this time, we're gonna conduct a public hearing to receive the public comment on the county and district clerk's preservation and restoration records plans for FY 2022. And what time is it, Madam Clerk?
10:10.
10:10. Do you wanna come on up here and just go ahead and do your information? I'll run through the gamut of it. Notice was published in the Polk County Enterprise on September 16, 2021, and a copy of the county clerk's proposed plan may be viewed in the county clerk's office located in the Polk County Judicial Center or the county clerk's page on the website. A copy of the district clerk's proposed plan may be viewed in the district clerk's office located in the Polk County Judicial Center or on her website page as well. You wanna go through any of it, or?
We're just gonna continue to preserve our earliest books. That's where we're at. So that the fee that we collect goes towards that, and we just try to spend every year to preserve as much as we can.
Of the
That's
history.
it.
If you all will recall, part of what we did was when the state increased the passport fees, then the court agreed to specifically give those to the clerk so that they could continue maintaining and preserving historical documents for the county.
That's it. Thank you.
And I'm assuming the same applies to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, would appreciate if you'd approve our plan.
Yes.
Is there anyone here that would like to comment on that? Very well, we'll close the hearing then.
10:12.
10:12. Okay, I need a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Commissioner Overstreet, second. Commissioner Purvis, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, conduct a public hearing on the creation of a reinvestment zone to be known as Polk County Reinvestment Zone, Lone Spur for purposes of tax abatement to provide economic development within the county as described and depicted. So this, basically, we're sliding into the very next hearing. We have Eric McGee here that will lead us through it. And basically, this will be an order that designates some of the unincorporated portions of the county as a reinvestment zone. And you have the list of all the properties that are included that would contribute to economic development of the county. And it falls in precinct 1. The actual project is smaller than the properties that are included in the boundaries of this zone, but this would allow for the project to expand into other areas surrounding the project boundaries if the other landowners are interested and would benefit. Come on up, Mr. McGee.
Come on up, okay. Well, I'm only gonna take just a few minutes during this portion, because if you look, this is really for public comment, public hearing here, if anyone's here to speak. Agenda items 8 and 9 after you close the public hearing is where I'll actually do the big bulk of talking. Bob is on this project in our office, Bob Bass, but I got the privilege of coming over here today. I'm not sure, I think Lone Spur, are you here? That's who I
Lone
figured.
Spur's here.
I looked around the crowd here because I've been to Polk County enough, and I thought I picked out the 2 people that weren't Byron Underwood, so.
Byron didn't even hear you or
He
pay
hadn't even
attention.
turned it on over there.
5 o'clock.
His hearing aid is on.
Exactly. But this is a project, a reinvestment zone. It's called Lone Spur Solar Energy LLC project. The reinvestment zone is composed of approximately 6,600 acres. There's some change in there. It's all attached here. And it's been published in the newspaper for today's public hearing. It's located east of Lake Livingston State Park and south of the city of Livingston. So this is a solar project. and then I'll let the public hearing proceed, and then I'll come back up here and talk about the specifics of the agreement and the other documents, and answer
Sounds
any
good.
questions.
Sir, would you all like to come up here and say anything?
We would be happy to if it benefits the court, but we don't need to.
I'll tell you what, let's see if anyone has a public comment, and then that will allow you to respond to any public comment. Yes, sir. Morning.
How are y'all?
Fine, thank you.
Well, I don't really know how to do any of this stuff.
You're good. If you'll just, for the record, and give us your name.
I'm
then-
Bart Goldsmith. I'm living in Kickapoo Forest. Got some ideas as far as development and county projects that we can do for investment from ground to table, for certifications and things of that nature through education and things of that nature. I don't know what to print on a PDF, what's a PDF and stuff like that. I've got 17 other projects I'm doing right now. And whatever I can do to get involved to help this happen, because, you know, this is agro stuff through Sam Houston, through A&M, stuff that we can create with our natural resources and use certifications through colleges, accreditations, what have you.
So you're talking about future other options
Whatever,
or other development?
within the county. I mean, I don't, you know, I mean, I'm good at stepping on my own toes and inserting my own foot. But anything I can do, I mean, I've got a background in 4-H from second grade to, you know, when I decided I needed to go a different route.
Yes, sir. So Mr. Goldsmith, do you mind leaving your information, your contact information?
No, ma'am.
With this office, and then we'll be happy to contact you
And,
and visit with you about
because
ideas?
I think it would be beneficial in a lot of different ways.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't have a doctorate or a scientific degree. I mean, I could print one for you and give it to you, but that's not my style.
No, sir, that would be wonderful. So before you leave, if you would, you'd leave your contact information.
If I can do that now, as I've got
You can exit right through
a
that door
million
and
things.
give her the
Thank y'all for y'all's
information.
time.
Oh, yes, sir, thank you.
Thank
That'd be
Y'all have a
great.
blessed day.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone that would like to comment on Lone Spur? Nope.
I have one question.
Sure.
I've been approached by a couple of different people on this, the property owners on this list. And, they said they weren't contacted or anything about this, and I knew the economic development zone was just encompassing some land, but they were concerned about not being contacted.
That was one of the questions that, when we spoke to them, got answered. Those people that are in the reinvestment zone are not necessarily in the project zone. And so the project boundaries at this point, the landowners that are within the project boundaries, those people have been contacted. And so my question at that time was, are we negatively impacting any other landowners that might be included in this? And the answer is no.
Yeah, I
So-
just want to clarify that, because like I say, I was approached by a couple of people that their names are on this list and they didn't know anything about it.
Yes, sir, and we contacted some of them as well. We contacted some of them as well. And we went through the documents as well, so that we would know. We don't wanna negatively impact anybody that's a landowner in that area, but we also don't wanna shrink it down to where they won't have an opportunity to participate should they choose.
Yeah.
That make sense?
Yeah.
Did I answer that correctly over there?
Yes, ma'am.
That was our discussion.
That's what we needed.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes. Okay. We need to close this public hearing. What time is it, madam?
10:19.
10:19.
So
Motion-
moved. Second.
Commissioner Purvis, Commissioner Vincent, any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item number 8, consider and take possible action to create a reinvestment zone for purposes of tax abatement to provide economic development within the county in accordance with Chapter 312 of the Texas Tax Code. Said reinvestment zone to be known as Polk County Reinvestment Zone Lone Spur and located as described and depicted in the application by tax abatement agreement and in the public notices published in accordance with Chapter 312 of the Texas Tax Code. So the designation of the reinvestment zone expires in 5 years after the date of the designation, and it may be renewed for periods not to exceed 5 years. So the expiration of the designation does not affect any existing agreements under this subchapter. And all of this is in precinct 1.
Now make the motion.
Okay, Commissioner Robertson,
Second.
second Commissioner Vincent. I'm going to abstain from voting. I was one of those landowners that did not get contacted and wondered what had happened. So I will abstain from voting. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9, consider and take possible action regarding the adoption of a tax abatement agreement with Lone Spur Solar Energy LLC pursuant to Chapter 312 of the Texas Tax Code. Commissioner Robertson, if you want that motion, it's written down there for you.
And just so I can go over a couple of things, there's 3 things that have to be covered under this agenda item. You don't need separate agreements, but I think you need to know about each one of them because they're a part of this agenda item.
Yes, sir.
As part of the tax abatement agreement, there's also a road use agreement that you will be entering into with Lone Spur. And that's actually if there's an impact during this construction project. I think there's about 1,200 acres that will be in the initial phase. It begins in 2023. And I believe the agreement says that it will be substantially completed by December 31st of 2024, is that right? I was gonna give them the opportunity if they had anything else to say, particularly about this. They will have to designate the roads that they will be using and going over that with the commissioner, making sure that this road use agreement, if there is damage during that process, that falls on them. They'll be entering a bond to repair those roads if it's their trucks that do the damage during this process, because there will be substantial truck traffic that comes up, and they'll work directly with you, and I think we've already gone over this. Bob probably talked to you about that in depth, but the packet that gets filed with the clerk's office not only considers the order creating the reinvestment zone, but it will have this road use agreement. So we'll need to go ahead and move to adopt and pass the road use agreement first.
Okay.
And then the second thing is the actual tax abatement agreement. If there's any questions on that, the number of jobs that it initially brings in, I think has been estimated at about 200 jobs, if that's correct.
For construction.
For construction
During
only.
construction.
Then there will be just one job. And so when you follow that tax abatement agreement, it requires your guidelines and criteria to create tax abatement agreements, and reinvestment zone requires a certain number of jobs. In circumstances like this, there's been a waiver, and that is the third thing, which is the addendum that will be the waiver to the tax abatement agreement. So you have your order creating the reinvestment zone, which you just passed, and then now you will pass the road use agreement that you will enter into with Lone Spur. Will then pass the tax abatement agreement and authorize for signing, and then the addendum that will be that waiver. And I don't mind reading any of these, but I know y'all have done these reinvestment zones before, and I have all the documentation here, and I believe we have signed copies.
It should be FedEx delivery.
Okay.
Okay, so let's do the road use agreement, which is basically with precinct 1 commissioner.
And I'm looking for the
Okay,
language.
The reinvestment, okay, the reinvestment zone we've already done.
Right.
Okay, so but attached to item 8, we're gonna do the road use agreement. But there's no language on there, so
Okay.
you're just going to, yeah, I'm not confusing you. Because the verbiage doesn't have to be exact.
Okay.
Just that you're willing to negotiate
Yes.
and follow a road use agreement.
Yes, I make the motion to follow the road use agreement on the Lone Spur Solar Energy.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Overstreet. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And just so you know, there was a resolution that is attached to this entire thing that lays out the very specific criteria for how that road use agreement works, and that's already been negotiated with Lone Spur to make sure they understand the requirements of these road use agreements and what's actually expected of them, because it's all for the protection of the county. We've had oil and gas and multiple developments in counties over the years.
Okay, so now we move to the tax abatement, or do we do the addendum?
Yes, you do the tax abatement next, and then you're gonna pass the addendum to the tax abatement agreement.
Okay, so item number 9, consider and take possible action regarding the adoption of a tax abatement agreement with Lone Spur Solar Energy LLC pursuant to Chapter 312 of the Texas Tax Code, and then that's one that you have it written down there, what the motion needs to say.
I move to approve a tax abatement agreement with Lone Spur Solar Energy LLC to provide economic development within the Polk County Reinvestment Zone. Lone Spur, located within Polk County in accordance with Chapter 312 of the Texas Tax Code, upon land described in the application and public notices required by law for the construction of a solar power generating project of approximately 105 MW capacity, an estimated cost of $76 million.
Correct. Comes as a motion from Commissioner Robertson. Second Commissioner Overstreet. Any further discussion or questions? Do we have anything we need to add to that?
That's it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I abstain on all of these. Motion carries.
And then the last one is just the addendum to the tax abatement agreement that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. In the guidelines and criteria, which actually sets out the employment requirements, that is section 6 in parentheses I-1. And so all the addendum is doing is just addressing any inconsistencies between the Polk County tax abatement guidelines and the tax abatement agreement with Lone Spur Solar Energy, because they will have one permanent full-time employee with more employees if the project expands and that kind of stuff, but it does require 10 permanents. And so I'll give you the language just so you can read it, because I talk fast and
Okay.
just this top part here that's underlined, yeah,
Oh, right here.
this portion.
Okay. I make the motion for the addendum for the tax abatement agreement with Lone Spur Solar Energy LLC.
To accept the waiver in the number of positions created, permanent jobs created?
Yes.
Okay. Just so that everybody understands, our application says 10 permanent jobs must be created. Part of what has happened is with, especially with the energy industry, is so many things now are done remotely. So like the hydroelectric had 10 jobs and it went to 2, you know, so all of these, so it has to do with the way that our application is originally written. Okay, so it comes as a motion from Commissioner Robertson, second Commissioner Purvis. I'm abstaining. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item number 10, new business. You have the consent agenda. You have several addendums on B. Addendum number 1 in the amount of $20,026.26. Addendum number 2 in the amount of $2,800. Addendum number 3 in the amount of $146,521.72. Addendum, well, we have 2 addendum number 3s evidently. Addendum number 4 in the amount of $291,705.41, and addendum number 5 in the amount of $40,358.59. Is there anything in the consent agenda that you wish to pull?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Vincent, second Commissioner Purvis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11, consider approval of personnel matters as follows. Review and consideration of personnel action form requests submitted since the last meeting, and review of any authorized emergency hires. We had 2 emergency hires, one at the sheriff and one at the jail. All the listing of the PAFs were included in your packet.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Overstreet.
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Robertson. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 12, consider request for revisions and amendments to the budget as follows. The FY 2021 budget revisions, 2021-19, and amendments, 2021-19A, as presented by the county auditor's office, and a copy of all the proposed revisions and amendments was included in your packet. Need a motion?
So moved.
Commissioner Vincent?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Overstreet. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 13, consider approval of offers to purchase tax foreclosed properties as follows. In precinct 2, lots 36, 37, 38, block 11, section 2, Cedar Point, cause number T13-116. Commissioner Vincent?
Motion to sell, please.
Motion to sell. Second, Commissioner Purvis. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 14, discuss and consider any and all necessary action regarding proposed agreements from Net Data for Justice of the Peace Case Management, Real Vision Imaging, Integrated Credit Card Payment System, iTicket, DPS Citation Download, and GHS Collection Management. As you all are aware, Net Data, we have 3 separate proposals that were presented to the court. And then we had an executive session with Eric McGee. And so he has the options that were presented by Net Data to continue providing court software to the JP offices. And they're on your thing at this time. These are the options. We can sign a 3-year agreement with Net Data for JP Case Management, Real Vision Imaging, Integrated Credit Card Payments, iTicket Citation Downloads, Secure Archive Manager, encryption hardware, and IBM server hardware maintenance for $65,830 and $30,000 a year, and also sign a 3-year GHS collection service agreement that provides additional service for the justice courts beyond what other collection services companies are able to provide. Then we also have it including the cloud hosting services for $61,530,000. And then we also have the, including the GHS collection services and cloud hosting for $45,530. And then the last one was to continue with our existing services on a year-to-year basis for $74,131.50.
Okay, you know,
Go ahead.
really quickly.
Yes, sir.
Bill Moser's here with Net Data
Hi,
in the
Bill.
back. And I think he's met with you before. After our last Commissioners Court meeting, we went back and I visited with Bill quite extensively, multiple times probably. He was tired of hearing from me. And Dave Graves, who's the president of Net Data. And one of the things that we particularly wanted to look at was actually the language in the various agreements that we would be signing. There's a small change. One of them, the 3-year option, says $65,000. That's actually gonna be $59,000, but there is a separate $6,000 agreement that must be signed as part of the basic hardware IT support and maintenance agreement. I want you all to know that I worked with Casey over in IT extensively to make sure I understood all the processes that go through here when we use Net Data. She was fantastic, and I want to make sure she gets a little acknowledgement here as walking through this process, as well as Carrie. I couldn't do this without Carrie, but so the 3 options are, one, like we talked about last time, has a host agreement where the data actually moves off the server that's here in Polk County and goes there to Net Data, and that data is there and is stored there. And then there has to be, if that's the option that the Commissioners Court seeks to go with, then there will need to be some minor tweaks to the contract on that to make sure we have full access back to all of our data and control over those data. And there's certain things that we looked at. The one that Bill and I actually worked with the most was, and I think we have a final version as of last night, Dave sent me one last night. And the specific items that we looked at was just making sure that the warranty provisions and the liability provisions of the agreement were sufficient for the county. I also included language in there concerning termination, 2 different versions of termination that are required by counties. One is that if the county doesn't appropriate the funds to pay for this, we're not bound under the contractual provisions because with COVID and things like that. And then also we have negotiated with them that if you ever terminate this contract after these 3 years, then you will have a 30-day extension to obtain your data that is basically served on our server. Casey and I worked through various protocols of how to make sure that the server is secure and make sure that our licenses, I think there's been some discussion in previous Commissioners Court meetings about the roles and authority that our employees have and changes into that system. So now all of that is retained with the county under both of those agreements. And then that third option is the 74,000 option, where it's just a 1-year renewal. And what that looks like is invoices that come in from net data, and it just gives you the flat rate fee for each thing. So there's about 6 different agreements that form that 74,000 to make sure that we have all of that stuff. That's just for 1 year, and those are just payment options that you renew each one of those various agreements at that increased amount. And I would probably suggest there that we take some of that similar language and add that in an amendment that I have formed just to agree to the 1 year. So make sure we have those security protocols in existence after that. So those are the 3 options. Bill can probably talk more on the technical sense of what each one of those things do if you have questions related to that.
Sounds good. Any questions?
We have full access to our information on the iCloud.
On the 3-year, no, that will be theirs. On the 3-year agreement with net data, then we're giving the JPs everything that they originally wanted, but we're holding our data.
Maintaining the server.
We are
it has
maintaining
a
the server.
hardware agreement.
And that's on us.
If you go to the host agreement, my understanding, just looking at various counties, not only Polk County, but over the next probably 3 years, you're gonna start looking at ways as the cloud continues to reduce in price, that the county would probably go to some type of county-wide cloud system, maybe even negotiate through whoever bids on those projects. But it would be you're gonna have to, then if you don't stay with net data and all the data is stored on their cloud, then you've somehow got to gain access to all of your data and then have it moved somewhere else.
And we are looking at, we've already been researching, Casey and her team have been looking at cloud hosting for the last couple of years. Obviously, it got disrupted with all the COVID mess. But we do need to move towards cloud hosting. But the cloud hosting that we were looking at was countywide, because we have to take into consideration the higher courts, and we need to keep in consideration the sheriff's office and the district attorney's office, because they have so many videos and photos and things like that. And so the cloud hosting, that was already being researched in terms of the entire county. And the item, the number 4, the existing services, was the one where we had received duplicate billing, and they had sent us the bill for $50,000, right? And so we were like, why would we not stay there? But then that was sent in error, I guess, by billing, and so the true cost on that was $74,000, and then the 3-year agreement would be $65,830 a year.
Right, the 74,131.
We control our data, yes, sir.
Yes, this is all on those 2 options are on your server. The other one is a cloud-based system.
Yeah, I see, it's here.
Yes, sir.
Here it is. Our current stuff gonna be able to handle that?
Yeah, the 3-year agreement is exactly what the JPs wanted, and IT is very comfortable with the 3-year agreement with that data.
I'll make a motion, we go with number 1.
Okay. Who was my second? Overstreet, Commissioner Vincent, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And you're authorized to sign the agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Could I have a motion to authorize me to sign and
So
move
moved.
forward?
Second.
Commissioner Overstreet, Commissioner Vincent, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
So just so you know, Judge, I will have the agreement to you probably this afternoon, after I meet with Bill and Dave one more time, just to make sure that this last week that we had, should after the end of those 3 years we terminate, we will have a period for us to have full access not only to our server, which has all the data on it, but their system to make sure we can capture it if need be.
If the JPs should decide to do
Something different 3
something
years
different.
down the road,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, because we do want to protect their offices and their data.
Right, because that data is stored on our server, but accessibility and making sure
That's
it's
right.
transferred correctly, if they need an image or if they need any kind of data on there, even if you elect to transfer to someone else, or even change over maybe to their iCloud system, there's gotta be a transition period where we still have accessibility to the JP's data.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir. Okay, item number 15, discuss and consider any and all necessary action regarding request to review status of J. Walding Road. On January 12th, 2021, Tyler Epstein approached the court during the public comment portion of the meeting, stating that there's an obstruction on a public road which prevents him from accessing his property. Russell Thomas also addressed the court at that time, stating that the road was never a public road and is not now. And he has no obligation to remove the gate that he has installed to restrict access across his property. This is the item that Tyler referenced and that we received the letters about as well. If we do need to, we met with Bob Bass at length, I guess, sometime January. At one of those times, we met with Bob Bass at length. And so we need to know how the court would like to proceed.
I'd like to consult our legal counsel.
Very well, we can do that. In that case, let's table the item to the very end so that we don't keep everybody else waiting. So we have a motion to table it to the end of the meeting from Commissioner Overstreet and Commissioner Vincent. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item number 16, discuss and consider modifications to Polk County subdivision regulations. At the previous meeting, the court had a lengthy discussion with Jed Morris of GLS, the county's engineer for the purpose of subdivision development, and developers that attended to voice opinions on road standards and bonding requirements that they felt needed to be included or were included in our subdivision regulations. And we discussed the paving requirements. So the considerations that are on the table regarding road standards from our engineer was: 1, not require impervious surfaces on private roads. 2, not require impervious surfaces on public roads. 3, only require impervious surfaces on private roads accessed by existing roads with impervious surface. And 4, only require impervious surface on public roads accessed by existing roads with impervious surface, which would be a change in the county road. So the paved road standards were adopted when the board approved the new regulations in August of 2020. We addressed some sections that were contradictory in May of 2021. And basically the goal is to ensure that subdivision roads that are developed today are still traversable for buses and emergency personnel, along with property owners, decades into the future. And we all know that this is not the case for some of our older neighborhoods. So how would the court like to proceed?
I'd like the court to consider changing the regulations to, if a subdivision not be required to have a chip and seal or high mac, if the road leading to it does not have chip and seal or high mac.
Okay, so can I play devil's advocate with that one?
Sure.
What if there's a change in the county road and then it does become paved?
And it'll be up to them, or it'll be up to their HOA or their POA.
Right, so my point would be just not require impervious surfaces on private roads. Instead of it being contingent on what kind of road leads to it.
Could be, if it's behind a gated community.
Yeah.
Why is it nailed down to a gated community?
Wouldn't have to be.
It wouldn't have to be. It wouldn't have to be. Just if it's a private road, I'm just saying, why would you tie the subdivision to what the county is? Because if the county changes, then.
It's just hard for us to be able to force them to have something that we can't provide ourselves in that particular location.
And I understand, but in 10 years, you won't know. So my point is that let's not tie them to what the county does or does not provide. If the next person comes along and says, well, yeah, you have a chip and seal there, but it's really crappy, and so it doesn't count as a true road, you see what I'm saying? And I wanna do a better road over here, so why would you tie it up?
Would it be at the commissioner's discretion per precinct?
I mean, that,
Where
you've
where
got
I'm
that.
going with that is, for instance, like, 3 and 4, precincts 3 and 4 are somewhat similar, whereas precinct 1 and 2 are somewhat similar. So we may have a subdivision that wants to, an existing subdivision that wants to bring in part of their roads into the county MSAG. Could we still require them to have chip and seal or an impervious road in order for it to be brought into the county MSAG with the language that you just said?
No. You have it right now as a variance, so you can maintain it as a variance.
Well, I've only got.
I'm going with your recommendation.
my
I'm
main-
just playing devil's advocate with it, that's all.
My main concern about all this, especially in mine and Mills precincts, is yet 10 years from now, they're still gonna be hauling logs down those roads. Because our mills aren't going anywhere in Polk County. I mean, I hope they don't, but we're
No,
still gonna be hauling
We're getting
timber.
more.
And I agree with
And a
that.
chip and seal road will not hold those log trucks, or water trucks, or oil trucks, or whatever.
Okay, but we're
Like,
talking about subdivisions here, right?
But I'm talking about the road leading to that
Yes, sir,
subdivision.
yes, sir, but right here, we're talking about subdivisions.
I understand that.
No.
And they might haul logs out of that subdivision, through that subdivision, depending on where it's put and what kind of right-of-way agreement they got.
They do it pretty regular.
Yes, sir.
You all tell me, I'm just playing devil's advocate for that concept
I don't
right
know, I was
now.
happy when we did, the commissioner would give everybody a variance, however, you know, whatever
But then
the
we get-
situation needed.
As
Then we
long
get
as
it
it
thrown
met
back.
county, as long as it met county standards.
And so if you give one a variance, you gotta give another a variance.
Yeah, that's a never-
That's
That's the whole thing. I don't like that.
You all tell me.
Well, that's the reason why I brought up earlier about, it allows precinct 3 and 4 to do what they need to do, because subdivision that's developed out there is probably, or could not, maybe have an impervious road, where in precinct 1 and 2,
They could,
it could possibly have.
And-
More than likely, it's gonna have that.
and that works for me. So you bringing that as a motion?
Let's clarify
Yeah,
that.
let's clarify.
Hang on a minute now.
Okay.
We'll
You
clarify.
got it.
I got it right. If it's going with this right here, it's saying that if you're doing it off an existed paved road, it's gotta be paved.
Yep.
Yes.
And if it's not, it's not.
Now, would that be a regulation, or would that be a variance?
Well, right now, y'all are saying that you would put it in there as a rule.
Paved road, dirt road to dirt road, or rock road.
And I mean, it don't knock the standards down on building a road. They still gotta do an engineered base.
Yes.
And then
It
still
wouldn't
rock
keep-
on it.
It still wouldn't keep precinct 1 and 2 from building a impervious road to that subdivision.
No.
It just would not require them to have that,
Yeah.
and leave out the gated.
Yeah, the gated has nothing to do with
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
If it's a
nothing to do with it.
private, if they're private roads, then they are private roads.
Have nothing to do with it. They still gotta be built to county standards, whether they got the topping on them or they don't have the topping on them. I mean, we still got that.
And the commissioner has to sign off on that.
And now we have, like I say, our right-of-ways and all are sufficient. I mean, I talked to Jed after this meeting, and he said he wished all of them were rock roads, you know, you could go back and redo them. He said, because the counties can't afford to go back and redo chip and seal roads like they need to.
Well, with the explosion of the population and with the different timber companies releasing a lot of their timber that once served as logging roads, we've never entertained the idea, or I've never entertained the idea of chip sealing them, just because we knew all those log trucks were coming out of there.
And regardless of who
But
owns it,
people are
there's-
buying those and splitting them up and making subdivisions into them. However, with that being said, they're not buying all the property. So you're gonna have a blend of subdivisions along with roads that are still accommodating the logging industry.
And we're all, for the next 50 years, at
Right.
least I
Yeah,
hope.
we don't want our logging
We're
industry
gonna
to
have
go away.
agriculture and timber production, and we don't want to place obstacles in the way of those landowners that are making those decisions.
Boy,
or put additional costs on the county by trying to repair a chip and seal road that was put down. I think we're all.
I can assure you, yes, it does cost a lot more to repair a chip and seal road that's been destroyed than it does a rock road.
Always looks a lot uglier too after it's been repaired.
Yes, sir.
Well, the county doesn't really have the equipment to repair and chip and seal road. You didn't have any contract.
It has to be contracted.
The petroleum aspect of it does.
Okay, so how would you like to proceed?
As presented.
As
There's
presented,
four.
the original
There's
motion.
four, there's
Well,
no,
let's see here. Not requiring permanent service on a private road, which we need to delete the private road part of it anyway.
well, if it's a private subdivision, then it's a private road, right? They're just
But
gonna
it's
bring
good.
it up to specs and
Yeah.
it'd be rock road, correct?
Well, it may not necessarily be a private road because it's said on a lot, it says on a lot of plats that the subdivisions dedicated, the roads are dedicated to the public.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's some that are,
But that doesn't necessarily make them county maintained.
correct. Go ahead.
I'm
Here we go,
sorry.
here comes our attorney.
Exactly. Even if the plat says that it is a public road and they're dedicating it, it does not become a county road. So
Correct.
what is required there is a separate order where the Commissioners Court actually acknowledges that they are accepting that road into the county road system. But it still falls under the subdivision rules and regulations
Correct.
and all that stuff, but.
And it will have to be done to county standards.
Okay, with that being said, Mr. McGee, so currently in our precinct, or the way it's reads now, if a subdivision wants to bring a road, because sometimes they start out with the main road and then they'll bring that into the county MSAG, and then they may bring in lateral roads into the county MSAG. We can still require them, with this motion, we could still require them to have to chip and seal or high mac that particular road in order for it to become a county road,
Right, and that's.
as it is now.
Right, that's even if there's some road out there in existence right now, you're not required, there is no such requirement that you ever accept a road into the county road system. If you
Okay.
choose to,
Right, no,
you
I
can
get-
make
I
them
get
bring
that.
it up to standards before.
But we
you
can
accept-
still require them to do that. Like in
Right.
precinct 1 and 2, if somebody wants to bring a road into the county MSAC, we can still require them to chip and seal or high mac that road.
Right, before you accept it.
Right. Yeah. You heard it, Judge.
Yeah, we're just not required.
I know
to
that,
pay
but
anything.
y'all still aren't giving me a motion.
Okay. Just trying to cover our bases. I don't want a bunch of dirt roads inside our subdivision with paved roads.
Okay. So, you're standing by your motion, which was to only require impervious surfaces on public roads accessed by existing roads with impervious surfaces.
Correct, and leave out the gated, no gated.
There's nothing about gated. That takes care of your concern as well, correct?
Second.
Okay, so that comes as a motion and as a second. Any further discussion or question?
That also means like off a state highway that's impervious.
Correct, correct.
Say that again?
Off a state highway or farm to market road, that is impervious, a paved road.
Yeah, I can think of a subdivision.
Off a state highway, anything that's connected to that.
Highway.
So if their subdivision does not connect a county road and it connects directly to a state highway,
Mhm.
it would apply to that also?
Correct,
Gotcha, okay,
because that's the road that they're accessing.
okay, even though it would be impervious.
It is impervious.
That's for public roads only? Does the motion stand?
Public roads accessed by existing roads with impervious surfaces. So it would have to go from impervious to impervious.
Right, it was public.
On public
Yeah,
roads.
public.
But if it's private,
Private.
private, it can go from paved to non-paved. Just check.
Well, now, so then that brings up the other issue. So the requirement would be for subdivisions that are building even if it's a subdivision road?
You talking about behind the gate and stuff, or just
Or
subdivision?
just subdivision? If it's a subdivision, right, and it's attaching to an impervious surface, I've learned way more about roads than I ever wanted to know, just so y'all are clear. Then are you gonna require the subdivision to have impervious surfaces? That's what you're saying right there, yes?
It's the way I mean, what I sent in was basically that way. If it's off of a rock road or dirt road, whatever, they could bring it up to standards and use a rock top.
So-
But if it was off a state highway, farm road, or one of our hard surface roads, it had to be hard surface. That's what I sent in.
Okay, so, right, so, but before we did have it to where if it was behind a gated community, that it, even though it would be off of an impervious road and it was gated, it would not have to be, an impervious surface. So that would be another option, would it not?
We could make it that.
So if it's an impervious surface, right now, what Tommy's saying that the road has to be impervious. But if they stuck up a gate or made it a gated community, then it could be impervious.
That's up to
Because
you.
we could never accept.
Cause you never can
we would-
accept those roads
that-
anyway.
Right, that's right. We can never accept those roads because of, Texas law says we can't, behind a gated community.
Okay, so,
Should we add that to it?
so we would say not require impervious surface on private roads, cause those are basically private roads, right? They belong to the subdivision.
And that.
Yeah, whether it's gated or not.
Yes.
And that
It's
deletes
a
the
private road.
situation with precinct 1 and 2 because we can't go into a subdivision that's gated anyway.
Correct. Well, you shouldn't be going into any subdivision that's all private, that's not county roads.
Well, I mean,
Other
even if
than
they
emergency
approach us,
service,
is what I'm
yes,
saying.
correct.
Even if they approach us with a petition, then we couldn't because they'd have to take the gate down, in other words. So that'd be another option.
Okay. So you're going with 1 and 4, not requiring impervious surfaces on private roads,
If gated.
if gated?
Does it have to be gated?
No.
Gate don't mean anything. As far as our part, you can't
Not
go
for
in there if it's a
subdivision.
private road.
That's true.
Right.
Private road.
Correct,
But
okay.
and then we say if the plat says that it's dedicated to the public,
Then,
that's a different situation.
correct. If
Okay.
it's dedicated to the public, then that changes it.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so now we have some other issues that need to be considered in terms of the subdivision plats. And we discussed all of these previously as well. 1, reduce the maintenance bond requirement to 1 year. It's currently 2 years. 2, reduce the maintenance bond requirement to 10% of the construction cost, which is an industry standard. And 3, include the articles of incorporation and bylaws of the homeowners association or other entity responsible for road maintenance in the event of the owner, subdivider, developer proposes to use privately maintained roads in the checklist that are not shown on the plat, and file those articles and bylaws with the plat. And then include figure 31 tax section 364.54 subdivision construction agreement sample form as tailored by Polk County in the checklist. And Jed recommends making the tailored document an appendix. And then Becky is requesting that we remove the water supply certificate from the plat, but still require the completed form to be submitted as part of the application process and filed along with the plat once approved. If it's on the plat, then she has to chase down that person to come sign the plat. So whereas if it's attached,
Yeah.
then we can move forward, and the developers don't have to go chase down the water development people, and we don't either. So that's her request right there. So are there any of those that, these are all things that we discussed last time, and basically we were all in agreement on?
Let me ask one question.
Sure.
On reducing the bond requirement from 1 year,
Mhm.
we're not gonna take the road over for, until after 2 years anyway.
Yeah, but the bonding requirement is the only thing you'd be.
So what in that last year, if it goes all to pieces, we don't have no leverage on anybody?
That is up to you.
I would
We
be-
can leave it as it is.
On somebody that's gonna have a road that's gonna be a county-maintained road in the end? Because we release their 10% at a year, and then they turn around and tear the road all up, what's gonna fix the road?
Well, they still have to petition the commissioner of the court, for the 2 years, and that's Texas law.
Yeah.
Y'all can tell them then that y'all aren't gonna accept it until it's meets the county.
Yeah, that's what they already do.
I'm with you, Tommy, after a year, if they go in there and log, do some logging and tear the road up, and then comes up 2 years and they're wanting to get it approved, y'all still have the right to say, no. we're not
Yeah.
gonna-
That's what they, that's
Yeah,
what
but
they
if
do
they
right
don't
now.
do anything, we don't have any leverage.
Well, you cannot accept it.
Well, you can accept it, but you still got all the property owners that just bought in there,
Yeah, they're mad.
sitting with a tow hung out to dry.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be logging, it could be anything.
Anything.
Okay,
Dump
so-
trucks and concrete trucks.
Construction, yeah.
So do you wanna leave it at 2 years?
I think at 2 years,
Okay,
10% on 2 years.
That's when we supposed to take it back.
Yeah.
Yes.
After 2 years.
okay, so 10% of the, for the maintenance fund requirement, for, keep our requirement for, of the 2 years, and then include the articles of incorporation in the bylaws. Right? And then, the construction agreement sample form, and remove the water supply certificate from the plat.
Yeah,
Will that work?
that's what she needs.
Yep. Okay, I need a motion.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Robertson, second Commissioner Purvis. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 17, discuss and consider any and all necessary action regarding the application for Rolling Pines subdivision, section 1, located in precinct 2. Goodwin Lassiter Strong has reviewed the subdivision plat for Rolling Pines section 1 for compliance with the Polk County subdivision regulations. And per our regulations, a proposed subdivision application that includes the construction of any infrastructure requires the developer to file a construction surety with the county for all streets, drainage, sewer, and water infrastructure as applicable to that subdivision. In the case of Rolling Pines, given the previous agenda item, which is why we placed it there, then all infrastructure is expected to be completed before the plat is approved, and you will need to take formal action to release the construction surety requirement before approving the plat. So contingent on receiving a maintenance bond, then,
I think we should vote to approve the plat contingents on acceptance of the maintenance bond, and a written request of the release of the construction bond.
sounds good? Comes as a motion from Commissioner
Second.
Vincent, second Commissioner Overstreet. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Very well. Item number 18, consider nominations by resolution for Polk Central Appraisal District Board members for the 2022-2023 term. We sent you all the correspondence regarding the nomination procedure included for your review. And you have in front of you a copy of the current appraisal board member candidates. And Sean Burks is who we notified you is no longer willing to serve. So do we have any nominees?
I thought it was Mr. Cooper, superintendent at Garden School, and I thought with Paul David Evans.
We need to specify which Paul David Evans we're talking about. We're talking about Fat Man, okay. Every nominee from around here, we're not even knowing what their name is. Okay, so Paul David, is he a junior? Okay, Paul David, Fat Man Evans is the nominee. Anybody else have any nominees?
Should come from precinct 2, right?
well,
Yeah, it doesn't
usually.
matter, but yeah.
Usually, it doesn't matter, usually what we try to do, because of the number of votes that we have, is we share our votes with other entities that don't have enough votes, which in Corrigan is one of those areas. That way, everybody has some representation.
Make
Okay,
a motion of nominations closed.
nomination cease, Commissioner Overstreet,
Second.
second Commissioner Vincent. Any further discussion or questions?
We accept Fat Man Evans.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item number 19, discuss and consider action relating to possible rescheduling of the regular Commissioners Court session set for Tuesday, October 12th, due to the court's attendance at the County Judges and Commissioners Association Conference in Round Rock. We included a calendar in there so that you all could take a look
8th.
at your options. Friday, October the 8th, looks like the best spaced
Yes, it
spot.
does.
Does that work for everybody, 10 a.m.? Okay, can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I'll second.
Commissioner Overstreet, Commissioner Robertson, any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item number 20. Let me just say, come on up, Nick. Any of you all that were here for just items 16 and 17, if you wanna leave, you're more than welcome to. You will not disrupt the court if you're looking to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I done made stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, GLS will be present to provide an overview of the project to date and the necessity for advertising for construction bids at this time. Where the copy of the construction plans and the prepared bid sheet was included in your packet for your review. And we are trying to make sure that we meet all of our timeline obligations and the deadline criteria as set by everybody. Go ahead.
So, just a summary of what this project is, we're doing work at the Dallasville-Segno WSC Plant 1. We're gonna rehab the existing tank, bring it up to current code. We're also gonna construct a second storage tank. The base bid will be for a second storage tank of 40,000 gallons, which is the size they have out there now. We're gonna also go out for bids on a larger 60,000 gallon tank to give them more capacity. At this time, plans, specifications, contract documents are complete, and were submitted to TCEQ for their review and approval on August the 11th. Typically, that's a 60-day process, so we hope to have their response back by October the 11th. We're looking to go out for bids October 17th, put it in the paper Sunday, that's the day the paper runs here. Run it again on the 24th of October, open bids November 5th. November 4th.
Okay.
Don't need any penalties.
No, we do not need any penalties that will affect any future grants or grant proposals.
Big motion on this.
Yeah, I would think make a motion to
So
approve
moved.
for them to
Yeah,
move
we need a
forward.
motion to go, be able to go out for
Commissioner
bids.
Overstreet, Commissioner Robertson, any further discussion or questions? I think we probably need to include that I have capability for signatures in
Sure.
case they need it.
Make that motion on that.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Number 21, consider any and all necessary action regarding the request for proposal RFP number 2021-20 for school land lease. Proposals were opened on September 16th and forwarded to the court-selected committee for review. So Commissioner Robertson and Commissioner Purvis, this is your agenda item.
After review of those things submitted, we make the motion that we go with Cooper Ranches LLC.
We didn't have two proposals.
Oh, that's okay, we followed the process, which is what we need to do. So that comes as a motion from
Motion, a
you,
second.
Commissioner Robertson, and a second from Commissioner Purvis. service. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'm certainly not opposed, but I'm Wes Cooper.
Oh, well, hello, Mr. Cooper.
Howdy.
How you doing?
May I address the board?
Yes, sir, you may.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Commissioner Robertson. We look forward to getting to work. We have a lot of work to do. I would like to ask the court to consider, I know the term on this is different from our current term. We just signed a new lease on the other Polk County acres in July. It would work a lot better for us if all.
Made the terms together?
Yes, sir. We kind of got half of our house.
We had already actually discussed that, Mr. Cooper.
Okay.
That had already
Absolutely.
been discussed in our previous discussion, because one of the goals of the court was to maintain all those contracts in sync.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I don't see that being a problem, but we will certainly, when we approve the contract,
Okay.
then we will bring it to the court at that time. Will that work?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes, sir.
you, we
Thank you.
appreciate it. Okay, item number 22, consider approval of agreements for medical and mental health services at the Polk County Jail. This is Sheriff Lyons. Basically, I do wanna say that Amanda Hutchins, I've just scrambled two names. Amanda Mills and Jessica Hutchins worked very, very closely with the sheriff and the jail in trying to hammer out these. And everything has gone to Mike Matthews for review and gone back and forth. And so the first one is for Dr. Raymond Luna for Medical Director Services. He currently works with the jail already and with the sheriff's office. And so basically, we would be giving him additional responsibilities, and the compensation would increase from $68,400 to $80,400 annually. And a copy of that proposed agreement is included for your review. If you have any questions, we have Amanda here, Jessica's right in there if we need her, and Sheriff Lyons can answer any questions. Anyone have any questions on that? No? Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Robertson, second Commissioner Vincent. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The second one is Ann Luna Winston for after-hours inmate medical services. As you all will recall, several years ago, we started doing the services that were telemed. That did not work out as favorably as the sheriff and the jail administrator would have liked to have seen it happen. So we colored outside of the lines a little bit, tried to come up with some other options. And so the offer for Ann Luna Winston is to provide the medical support after hours for $36,000 annually. And so she would be available to answer calls, be available via FaceTime, I guess, to answer any questions and make recommendations for how to proceed in terms of the jail. And that too is in there for your review. All of these things have gone back and forth with everybody, and Mike Matthews has signed off on everything. Anyone have any questions on that?
How much was the telemed? You remember?
Yes, it was close. It was 42,000. And furthermore, the response to everything was take him to the hospital, take him to the hospital, take him to
Yeah,
the
I mean,
hospital.
I was just curious.
Yeah, no.
I couldn't remember.
No, so we're coming out ahead.
Yeah. So much.
Motion Commissioner Overstreet,
Second.
second Commissioner Purvis. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item C, 22C, Serenity House Counseling, PLLC, for inmate mental health services. If you all recall, this was the budget item that we added several years ago. And we had discussed our concern, and especially the sheriff's concern for mental health services at the jail. And this is the special line item that we put in there. And so the offer from Serenity House is to provide these services for $48,000 annually. A copy of the proposed agreement is included in there as well for your review. And the same thing has happened with this contract as any other contract. It's gone back and forth and up and down and all around. And they will be providing services through the jail on a regular basis. They will be there on a weekly basis, and they will also provide support services for after hours.
I'll make that motion.
Robertson.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Overstreet. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Sheriff.
Thank you, everyone.
And congratulations, Joe. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for all your hard work. We appreciate it. Okay. Do you wish to go, well, I guess we need to stay with it, with the initial assessment for, before we move forward, I do want to, introduce our new office manager here. Sorry, Jennifer, I just kind of skipped right over you. You were supposed to be in my public comment section. This is Jennifer Thompson, and she is now working in our office, so we have a new face. So if anybody needs anything, then please give her a call. Okay, item number 23. Discuss and consider the initial assessment of Polk County for the purpose of redistricting evaluation. Discuss and possible action to adopt findings of fact regarding political boundaries of Polk County, Texas, and an order redistricting of political boundaries, and evaluate the demographics regarding redistricting of Polk County political boundaries. And Eric Murphy will lead the charge.
All right, well, I'm gonna start on page 1, and I will read for the next 42 pages. No, I'm just kidding.
No, please don't. Okay, so let me interrupt you real quick. Anybody that would like to leave, unless you want to hear about the redistricting process, you are more than welcome to stay, but you will not be interrupting the court if you so decide. Okay, you have a presentation. Are you gonna project it on that wall?
So this is what, I have the presentation right here in the packet. So I kind of have 3 things that could occur here. The
Okay.
2 have to occur, and the other one you can tell me, we'll see you next time, okay?
That's fine.
So the projecting up on the wall is the portion where I actually have the census data, the census blocks, and we can spend time moving them around and working through a plan. But if you want to digest all of this today, then we'll go through the initial assessment really quickly, and then there's an order that you need to adopt, and you'll understand why you have to adopt it when we go through this. And then we can do the other one at a different one. It's y'all's choice. The other one is the tedious process. I'm sure who was on the court 10 years ago remembers that we draw and move blocks around and do all that. And you may want to spend some time just looking at the data to see how you want to do that.
Okay.
I'm here for whatever you want. We could go through 1 and 2 really quick, and then you can decide, and I could set up for 3, or we can do something else.
It's at the court's pleasure. So why don't we do 1 and 2, and then we'll decide.
Okay. So what I wanted to do is bring to you last time what happened 10 years ago, just so you would have some information. It's not included in here, but I wanted to give you the number. Polk County is one of those interesting counties in East Texas where you have prisons in here, and you can or cannot include the prison population in yours. 10 years ago, you elected not to include your prison population in here, and so the total population of Polk County 10 years ago was 41,492. That was without the prison population. I had the privilege of working at both prisons here, the ICE facility and Polensky unit. When I worked at the AG's office, that's what I did, is defend correctional officers whenever they were sued. So I knew exactly the location of them. And then the county jail where Sheriff Lyons is, that stays in because they are not convicted felons at that point. And so we included them in here. So your current population without prisons has grown by over 5,000. It's 46,409. That's what the current census shows. With the prison population, it's 50-something thousand. And where I'm looking here, just so you can get that data, is at the back after all the words. It's tab B, and it says Commissioners Court Precincts. Keep going, there should be a little Excel looking spreadsheet. And the first one says with prison data included, and the next one says without prison data included. Right there, the next one, Judge. You're one more away. Okay, so.
Okay, see, it says without prison population on the top right-hand corner.
With or without, okay.
30.66% is the highlighted.
is your deviation. So what happens is you take your county's total your county's total population, and you divide that by 4 because you have 4 precincts. So your ideal population, if you look in that second column, is 11,602 is the ideal population for each Commissioner's Court precinct. 10 years ago, it was 10,373. The highlighted section at the top in yellow is the actual population for each Commissioner's precinct, according to the US Census. So Commissioner Robertson grew by far the most above that ideal population total because her precinct is 13,721, which you see over in the far right-hand column is an 18.26 deviation from your population. And then Commissioner Purvis shrank the most away from that ideal number down to 10,164, which is 12.4% deviation away from it. So what they require is you're one that is above the ideal population the most, and you're one that is below the ideal population the most. That becomes the total maximum deviation in your county. Obviously, Commissioner Robertson and Commissioner Overstreet, their deviation would be differently, but they don't care about that. They look at the maximum amount. So you are 30.66%. Well, the Constitution requires the one person, one vote concept, means that the person in Commissioner Robertson's vote counts exactly the same as the as the voter in Commissioner Purvis's. Well, obviously, if she's over 3,600 voters difference, it's diluting that vote. So we're trying to get as close as we can back to the 11,602. Last time we got down to 4.61%. But there are certain things you have to take into consideration when you do that. And if you will look at the next section, the second page is JP precincts, but y'all's JP precincts follow your Commissioner's Court precincts. So that kind of gets brought along through the process. But when you go further back, it'll show you your county map. This is what your current precincts look like. The blue, it's color coded. And then we even have a zoom in after that of those are your voter district precincts, which will have to be moved when we move your boundary. And then we go through your minority population, which in your county, you have 2 minority populations, Hispanic and African American. That's above a 5% shot. And so you look at each one of these color-coded sections here. If you look at green, that means 45% of that census block is Hispanic, and then yellow is 45 to 72, and red is 72 or above. So it shows you where your population of minorities are spread out throughout the county, as well as same thing with your black population. It shows that. Why all that is important is because if you look at 10 years ago what you did, Commissioner Precinct 3 was where the majority of minority voters in the county was. It was not what some consider a minority precinct, meaning above 50% were minority, but it was really close. The Anglo population there was 52.52%, and then everyone else was a minority in that group. And so you have to stay close and cognizant in mind of those ethnic breakdowns to make sure that you still can accomplish and maintain if a minority could be elected into a particular precinct, you would want to ensure that. So if you go back to the spreadsheet that we had without the prison population, you can look down and we actually break down your ethnic percentages. So right now, as it stands, although Commissioner Purvis is at 50% .91 Anglo, if you notice down there. That's better than it was last time, but we have to add population to you. So as we're adding population to your precinct, which would be coming from precinct 1, preferably, if possible, we may have to move along and go, you know, it's gonna depend on how we do the maths. Where are all of your JPs housed? Where are their offices? Do you have any downtown?
We have JP Precinct 1 is at the Judicial Center,
Okay,
and then JP 2 is on Alaska,
okay,
and then JP 3 is housed in Corrigan, and JP 4 is right down here, down in the annex. So they are all housed, their offices are all housed well within the boundaries of their precinct.
okay. Because we want to make sure we don't,
One might not be, one might not be after this.
After this, it may not be then. I'm just saying, right now, currently, that's where they are.
Does everybody touch the courthouse right now?
No.
That's what I say, I don't need.
the only person that
See,
actually
he's not
touches
in
the courthouse is
precinct
1.
One,
Mhm.
I'm blocked off.
Yeah,
We're
Precinct
east
1
of it.
does.
I'm east of it.
Okay, we're all blocked up.
So,
I know I took in more of the city last time.
and that may be some of where we capture your population again, because if you look, and it's kind of hard to read here, that's why it's better to project it up here, but if you look at the top of the map, where it zooms in on Livingston, there are portions, in precinct 1.
Where's it at?
It's these ones that say Hispanic and black at the
Okay.
top of them, the green coloring. And if you look at the little cutout at the very, very top, which is the city of Livingston, especially on the Hispanic population. You see at the very top up there, where it shows a number 1 right there? Well, that's precinct 1. So those may be potential voters, and a minority population that could be transferred over to precinct 3. And what we do is, you know, if you remember from 10 years ago, Commissioner Overstreet, you were here for sure 10 years ago, right? Everybody, y'all both were.
It was too.
You click on the census block. We don't draw these blocks. This is all from the US Census. You click on that box and it will identify the total number of population in that blocks, and then it will break it down by each minority population. And when you start moving them, for example, from 1 over to 3, then you will be able to see how that affects that overall balance. Because if you notice, Commissioner 2 is almost perfect. They're only 1.4% away from that, and then you are only 4.47. Well, last time, y'all were real close to that number. So if we could draw a boundary where we wouldn't affect your precinct and wouldn't affect your precinct, and only give from 1 to 3, that may be helpful. But we're gonna have to keep, does anybody live near a boundary line that we need to be worried about? JPs, your constables?
That is one thing that we would be concerned about, because we do wanna make sure that if any of those boundary lines get moved, that is taken into consideration of current elected officials.
Okay,
I
so.
mean, the voters obviously voted for them, so you don't wanna,
So if I could just get a address, home address, not a PO box, but a home address of every, of the 4 commissioners, the 4 JPs, and the 4 constables. Then I can plug those in here, and when I come back, it'll project on there and have like a red dot that shows us where they are, so that we're making sure we're not moving those boundaries. It may require a little shifting inside the city of Livingston, where if we need to maintain that high minority percentage, that we move those voters maybe from 1 to 4 and 4 to 3, or however that goes about within those city boundaries, because it's very narrow right there. And same thing with their offices. I want to make sure that I don't draw out a JP office or something in the process.
Can we keep the map where these people live at their house private? I don't think that probably want their public address.
We're not doing public address, that's just for us to consider in terms of the determination.
Yeah, what it is it's a layer that does
Yeah.
not become public, but it's a layer that I see behind the scenes. So although we show it up there,
Yeah, we're not gonna publicize.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
May I give a potential address for possibly in the near future?
yes,
It already resides close to the boundary.
for which precinct?
Sarah, just provide that information to Carrie,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? Because we're gonna have some of that information anyway.
That's fine.
Yeah, so just provide anything like that to Carrie so
Okay.
that we can make sure, and the same thing with Bill.
Okay,
And I-
Anyone that's close, then we are paying attention to that.
okay.
I played around and just looked. So if you or anyone lives farther away from the centralized Livingston area, you're probably safe. Because we're probably not going out into the country and touching like between precinct 2 and precinct 3. When you look at the boundary, on the colored map, we're not gonna be out here taking population away and moving those boundaries. It's really the 1 and 3 and 1 and 3 touch inside Livingston. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to try to either piggyback it 1 into 2 and then 2 into 3. And that happens
Yeah, and then
sometimes
it would
too.
be
But you can make those
multiple
adjustments
shifts,
in
yeah.
the city.
Yeah.
That's the good news about East Texas. Since I'm from East Texas, I can say this. The population has not grown that significantly, like around Central Texas, around San Antonio, around Dallas and Houston Metroplex, where it's these weird boundaries where you have the major counties growing out, but you've always had your major population hub is your county seat, typically right in the middle of the county, and all 4 of your commissioners court precincts somehow come in and touch, and that's where we can really make those adjustments around. Those hard counties are the ones, if y'all eventually get all that growth and it shoots up from Houston, and you have like those significant subdivisions that come in, then you have a weird situation of where then all the boundaries have to be withdrawn, because the bulk of the population comes from one of those far corners of the county, and the only way to capture it is for everyone to go out there and capture that. You're still in this zone of Livingston has enough population that we should be able to either move from 1 directly to 3 or 1 to 2 to 3.
Sounds good.
So what are the dotted line?
The which dotted line?
You just have different, on a lot of these maps, you've got dotted lines. What does that mean?
I'm gonna walk up there so I can see it.
It looks like those are like the city's limits,
Let's see
So, yes, that is the, so this is gonna be your zoom in and your city limits of various things right in here. Of where, like you see Indian Springs, Cedar Point, Unalaska, Corrigan. And then the darker lines, these are all your roads everywhere through there.
Right.
But a lot of that also follows census blocks, because that's how the US Census conducts it, is by following those roads to, that's why you have some really, if you'll notice, some really large census blocks. If you look like at the color coded, the green and the yellow and that kind of stuff, those are more rural out there, and there's larger tracts of land. And so sometimes you may have no population in there, or you may have 400 people in there. It's very hard to divide those types of populations up. Because remember, so 10 years ago, well, if you go all the way back to the 1960s, the Voter Rights Act required you to have pre-clearance where we were under DOJ. So that lasted for like 25 years, and under President Clinton, he renewed that for 8 years, which got you to the 2000 census. Then President George W. Bush renewed it again for 8 more years when he was president, which got you through the 2010 census. Well, President Obama did not renew the Voters Rights Act So you don't have to send this plan to DOJ for what they call pre-clearance, but all the same data is required in the notebook should anybody challenge your ethnic breakdown, the way you have voters, the way you have anything. So you still have the entire process is exactly the same, minus that one step of forwarding it on. So, I mean, I've spent a pretty good amount of time on this, and we can zoom, if y'all want to stay and zoom in on that, we can. I can come back and have like a true workshop where we move it around for 2 or 3 hours, and that's all that's dedicated to that day. That'll be probably not on a commissioner's court day, it'll be in the morning or
Some other
afternoon.
time.
Yeah.
Can you send us those to where everybody here can kind of play around with it a little bit and see what happens?
So here's the weird thing about that census data. It's huge shape files, and if you don't have the program, you can't run
never
it.
mind.
And so even like emailing you the backup data that shows the layers, like you mentioned, I can't do that either, because it's all on that program that you click buttons and it layers, you know, roads versus this versus that. But you'll be able to see it when we're there. But I did spend some time just kind of looking around, and I think there's a possibility to really focus our attention in Livingston and maintain exactly what you have. You're in that position that it really doesn't matter, you're required to redistrict, so that's why I have an order already prepared for y'all, that y'all have received the initial assessment, y'all have made findings of fact that require that because of your 30.66 maximum deviation, you are going to redistrict and redraw your political boundaries. And then I also pre-selected for y'all, I can always change that, that you will not be including in your population your prison, because if you saw from that spreadsheet, that's gonna throw y'all way out of whack.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be 1,000. I only have 2. I did all of East Texas last time. I didn't do Polk for some reason, but I did all of East Texas last time, and only 2 counties did use the prison population. And I don't think they're gonna be able to do it this time just because of decrease in population.
They're trying to make everybody's vote equal with all of this, I understand that. But if this keeps going like it is, you're gonna have a rural precinct that's controlled by a city, by the
Right.
voters in the city.
And that's
I
what.
mean, that's what I'm saying, we're trying to make things fair, but it's making things unfair in the long run.
And that's because you still have the city of Livingston where you try to gather that population. In most parts of your area of East Texas, what I would call towards central, you have still been able to gain in population. But far East Texas counties are actually losing. You know, this is one of the very first censuses across the US, if you've paid attention to the news, where rural has actually not kept up with the gain in population and has actually been decreasing. And so you still have people here who are moving out to the country and having 15 acres, 20 acres, you know, 50 acres, whatever, and you were able to maintain some of that growth. But yes, as counties, we have very significant counties because of the growth of urban areas. They are, if this is the county right here, they've always traditionally gone to one county center. And so now you have San Antonio that has grown out into massive amounts here. And the only way to get that population is to go up here to get enough population. Well, you have commissioners that their precinct looks like that, half of the county almost, just to go capture some of that population. But their voters come from here, far outnumbering the rural aspect
How does that
of
make
it.
it fair?
Huh?
How does that make it fair?
Well, it's not by where you live, it's by your vote.
Well,
Your vote should
I-
count the exact same of whether you live in the country or in the city, not my rules.
I understand, but them people in the city don't really care what them poor devils up there is getting.
Right, that you see that right now in your congressional lines, in your
Yes.
state senate
That's what I
lines. And that county politics is a little bit different because you still are gonna have your county road system. You're not an urban county where you don't even really have county roads. It's
Yeah, well,
all
I mean, it don't
incorporated
affect
in the
us. We
city.
know everybody anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, but you see it in our congressional districts and then our state reps, you know, I mean, the cities outvote us, all the rural counties. So we,
So the least populous and the most populous precinct have to be within 5% of each other.
Preferably. You have to be below 10% for sure, but if you're going through this process, we try to get everybody below 5%. And that's what we did last time, barely 4.4 something, but we try to get everybody as close to 0 as you can, because once you get over 5%, then you are at risk of challenges further down the road in 4 years or 6 years if growth comes in, that throws it even more out of whack. But you wouldn't know until the next census, but there have been lawsuits over time on those kinds of things, but.
So to take it more rural and not city, you're gonna gain a bunch more roads, but,
you know,
And we
you
can,
ain't got nobody, right?
that's what I'm saying.
That's this.
You could gain a lot of roads, but not gain much population.
I mean, you ain't got no minority.
Remember last time, Bill, when we would see a blue dot up here or a red dot, and we'd get all excited, and they'd say, no, there's only one Hispanic male there, and you think, well, we can move the map right here and everything will work, and then you're only picking up population of 1, you know?
that's always the problem, is you see those red ones, the
Yeah.
red ones are the ones with the high percentage of
Yeah.
population, and you see it and you think, great, that's gotta be a huge chunk of people. Well, it may be 10 people, but only 12 people live in the whole
Yeah.
precinct block. But then you've got to cross 4 census blocks to get to that one, and you pick up 100 Anglos in the
Yeah.
process.
And you're diluted again.
Yeah, so you've
Yes.
diluted it even further.
And it's
So-
even getting harder because we all live amongst each other nowadays.
Yeah,
Where it used to be segregated, you know, in here and there.
and that was.
When are they ever gonna decide that, you know, we're all?
I know, I wish that there would be some changes in that, because I understand the point that you're making there, is Voter Rights Act really came about in the 60s to try to keep communities together. We don't have rural communities anymore that are predominantly one race. You know, like that was what was back then was, I mean, now with the growth, with the, all minority populations have spread out throughout the county, and you've seen an increase in that. And then the other place where you've really seen gains from 10 years to now is individuals who don't identify with any particular race. They identify with more than one race. So if you look even on the spreadsheet that I gave you, there's a column, I think, that says multi-race or something like that. I didn't do the comparison for you guys to see, but yeah, it increased significantly. When I'm looking here,
So they don't count as a minority.
right, yeah.
Yeah, they don't count as.
Yeah.
So like last time, just as an example of multi-race individuals, precinct 1 had 72. This time, there's 544 people that identify as that. Precinct 2 was 60, this time it's 466. Precinct 3 last time was 68, this time it's 342. Last time precinct 4 was 63, this time it's 345. So I mean, you see that like the way people identify has changed even in the last 10 years significantly.
Okay, so do y'all wanna set up a workshop where we can go through each of these? Okay.
So here's the order that I'm gonna give you, Judge, that needs to be signed, to move forward with redistricting, and it goes through each one of those criterias on the end, that you are above the 10%, which is constitutional deviation of your ideal population. You are 30.66. You are not including your prison population, and we will come up with several alternative plans for you to look at.
Okay, so basically the motion needs to say that we are adopting findings of fact regarding political boundaries of Polk County, and we're doing an order for redistricting of political boundaries and moving forward with evaluation of the demographics.
Yes.
Who would like that motion? Commissioner Overstreet?
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Robertson. Any further discussion or questions? Do you wanna you can just provide us a calendar later,
Mhm.
and we can kind of bounce it off everybody and see what would work.
So what I'm gonna try to do, just, I'm I'm gonna just move here and go to each county, because I'm doing everybody around you.
Okay.
So I can have some wiggle room that works with each county, so like I'll try to do like a Tuesday morning one place, a
Yeah.
Tuesday
That
afternoon, a
sounds good.
Wednesday morning, a Wednesday. So I'll probably be located here and then at my parents' house and then
Go.
further north throughout this next 6 weeks to 8
Sounds
weeks.
good. Okay, any more questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries to move forward with this. We're gonna need everybody's signature. Okay, now we go back to item number 15. So at this time, we will go ahead and go into executive session to consult with Mr. McGee. In closed session with legal counsel pursuant to Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with attorney will be a closed meeting, and Eric can discuss it with all of us. So, everybody needs to leave with the exception of Eric McGee. What time is it?
11:45.
11:45, closed session. I guess that's just a closed.
I sure miss all that. See,
Be careful, Byron.
Bye, Byron.
I was surprised you stayed this long.
I'm gonna get me a tuna fish sandwich up here at the place. How you doing?
Blue duck.
And Eric, man, y'all working him to death today.
I know.
We gotta get all we can out of him. We don't wanna pay much travel. He gonna go home and stay with his parents, spouse, and live off him, see?
That's right.
I sure will.
I charge us room and board too.
I don't. You get a discount.
Before I cut the video, please say Pursuant to whatever chapter.
What's that?
Before I cut the
Oh, you
video.
want me to repeat?
Yes, the agenda item is pursuant to.
Okay.
Whatever that we're going into closed session.
Okay, agenda item number that's 16. Agenda item number 15, discuss and consider any and all necessary action regarding the request to review the status of J.A. Walding Road. And we are going into executive session pursuant to Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with an attorney, closed meeting, and the only people that will be in the room are Eric McGee and the court members. Thank you, ma'am.
So I think I've